What I'd like to do now is hand over to Claire Perry. Claire is the Member of Parliament for Devizes, and she's also Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Defence Secretary, Philip Hammond. So Claire, over to you.
Thank you, Francis. I am indeed the member for Devizes, but also for the Devizes constituency, which encompasses pretty much all the Salisbury Plain garrison towns. So has anyone here ever served in Bulford, Larkhill, Perham, Tidworth? Well, if you were there, I would be your MP and we could talk about all the local things that matter. But service personnel and their families are by far my biggest voter group, if you like. I have about 10,500 service personnel in the constituency, at least the same number of dependents and several thousand MOD civil servants. And I'm also somebody who, before I came into politics, was in business for a very long time, working for a number of large companies and with a brief dabble into some entrepreneurial excitement, which I will tell you a little bit about later. But I just wanted to say that I am really thrilled to be here. I think this is an incredibly exciting event, and who knew that the British Library had all these amazing resources and that we were able to pull together a panel who I think will be absolutely inspirational in terms of their individual stories later on this evening. And what I wanted to do was just, I think, tee up three important questions that hopefully this evening will answer. The first is, what will this event do for you? We already have in the armed forces, I think, pretty world-class resettlement help for people who are thinking of leaving the services. The Career Transition Partnership goes out of its way to help people individually. There are all sorts of there's all sorts of financial support and resettlement help, and that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But I think one of the things that is often missing is that quiver of excitement, that sort of entrepreneurial string, if you like, to a service leaver's bow. And I think, if you'll forgive me, this might sound very insulting, but I think serving in Her Majesty's Armed Forces slightly beats the entrepreneurial blue sky thinking out of you and encourages you to take risks, often exceptionally large risks, with your lives and also the lives of people working with you, but perhaps encourages you more to follow instructions rather than to sit back and think for yourself. And I think one of the things we'll hear tonight from the panel is actually that ability to open up the envelope a bit, to think a little bit more broadly, is something that can be difficult to wrestle with if you're coming out of a relatively disciplined institution. So I think we'll hear a bit tonight about how our individual panellists actually made that leap themselves. I mentioned my experience. Being an entrepreneur is different and difficult. I went to Harvard Business School many years ago, and I actually took the entrepreneurial finance course, and I realised that I am actually never cut out to be an entrepreneur. But nevertheless, in 1999, when the internet was on fire and we all had fantastic ideas, I thought, I can do this too. We're going to start a company that will offer online financial advice to women who are often particularly badly served by traditional financial products. And we were living in America. The idea had traction there. We had a good market. We got funding. And then we came to the UK, where the idea didn't fly at all. And we realised that actually the grind required and the network of contacts that you need to actually take what was a good idea and perhaps transform it for a local market was something that was actually beyond myself and my partner. And at that point, I retired and went home and had lots of children and ended up in politics, which is a whole other story and a very bizarre one. But it made me realise that being an entrepreneur is different. And one of the most important ways to deliver success is to network, is to share experiences, is to be in contact with other people who are trying and failing. And you mentioned failure, Francis. I mean, failure is a very important part of the entrepreneurial journey. Often people don't realise that you might have to fail 1, 2, 3, 4 times before you hit upon the right idea and it becomes a success. And tolerating that failure and knowing where the network is to help you through that, I think, is a very important part of what we will hear tonight and hopefully what the organisation could provide going forward. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that are on offer, because I know we have organisations here tonight like Heropreneurs, which is a group I've been working with quite closely in my constituency, who offer things like franchising opportunities, which are a way of bounding the risk, if you like, offering you the chance to be your own boss, to work on something that is a highly successful idea, but using a tried and tested methodology. And so one of the takeaways from tonight is that entrepreneurialism is not just about having a blue sky idea, betting the ranch, mortgaging the house, having everybody working. There are ways to control your own economic destiny using a model that's already out there that is very highly successful. And so I think tonight what you will hear are lots and lots of pieces of evidence that might get sparks of entrepreneurial thinking in your minds and get you thinking this is perhaps something that you could do going forward. The second reason why I'm so glad to see you all tonight is that we want your skills in the UK economy. I've just come back from a 10-day parliamentary visit to Australia as the guests of the Australian Secretary of State for Defence. And boy, the Australians are desperate to recruit service leavers down there, often actually to go straight into their armed forces or to do other things. And of course, with the 2020 announcement coming up it's Thursday, it's the worst kept secret in politics. You all know on Thursday we're going to hear about some additional reductions in the armed forces. Reductions, I have to say, that none of the ministers, really none of the politicians want to do, but there is this great need to do it. But it will mean that people who have skills, who have knowledge, who have an ability, and actually at all ranks. I mean, one of the things I find so interesting in my constituency is just some of the basic skills that perhaps some of our younger soldiers have, are skills that are in such incredible short supply in the workforce. I have in my patch Tedworth House, which many of you will know is one of the new Army recovery centres, also funded by some of these fantastic partners. And I'm also a governor of the local academy down in that part of the world in Wiltshire. And we've realised this extraordinary ability of the band of brothers who are currently undergoing rehabilitation in Tedworth House, what they can bring to the young people in the school, particularly some of the lads who are perhaps going a little bit awry. And this incredible opportunity when you've grown up in a service culture where you understand about discipline and orders and reaching out and helping people, to take that into our schools, to take that out into our workplaces, it is an extraordinary, extraordinary set of skills. So we want to keep your skills on shore. We want to keep you in Britain. Ideally, I'd like you all to come and live in Wiltshire, because that would be fantastic for my local tax base, and I know many of you will, because it's wonderful. But we want your skills and we want your contribution to the British economy to be kept on shore. And then the last thing I'm particularly interested in is the service spouse, of whom I think we have an example tonight on the panel. I live in a really military part of the world. I've lived down there for 10 years, and one of the great untapped resources is the service spouse who travels around with their partner to all the numerous postings, gets really good at packing and unpacking, but perhaps never gets stuck into a really satisfying career or job opportunity, given the demands that we're making on them. And that, of course, will shift over time. We're moving to the Super Garrison concept, where people stay in postings for longer. They have more of a connection with their local community. But equally, as an entrepreneur, perhaps in the online space, perhaps with an online franchise, there are fantastic opportunities for service spouses to work and to contribute to the family economic unit. And that, again, is something that we're doing locally, various jobs fairs for service spouses in Tidworth, planned for later this year. And I think, again, I see lots of women in the audience. I don't know if you're service spouses or serving members of the armed forces, but there are masses and masses of entrepreneurial opportunities for you to take as well, ladies. And I think there will be lots of inspiration tonight. So I think, in conclusion, will we turn you all into the next Richard Bransons? Probably not. But one of the things I feel very strongly about, I suppose, as a relatively new MP, is that what Britain needs is a hefty dose of entrepreneurial spirit. We need that ability to say, even if we're working in a large company, even if we're working in used to work for a bank, don't all hiss at once, I've been sanitised by motherhood since then. But, even if you're working for a large, sleepy organisation, there is an opportunity to introduce some entrepreneurial spirit into that organisation, into the British British economy. So if you take away nothing else, I think it's perhaps that sense that it is possible that everybody in this room could have a great idea, and hopefully you'll take it off and you'll become, deeply successful, and it will be something that you can set up and employ hundreds of other people, or maybe it'll just be having a great idea within your next institution. But I'm delighted to be here. I really salute everybody in this room. And as I say, what we want to do is keep you here, keep you contributing, and hopefully have some fantastic, successful startups coming out of this room. Thank you.